students, today we will talk about toxic effects of solvents and vapors that includes solvent-induced chronic encephalopathy, solvent abuse, chlorinated hydrocarbons, fuel and fuel additives. And the main objectives of today's deliberations are introduction about toxic effects of solvents and vapors, to study about solvent-induced chronic encephalopathy, to know about chlorinated hydrocarbons, and to study about fuel and fuel additives. So, first of all, toxic effects of solvents and vapors. The term solvents refers to liquid organic chemicals used to dissolve solid materials. Solvents can be made from natural sources such as turpentine and the citrus solvents, but most are derived from petroleum or other synthetic sources. Solvents are used widely because they dissolve materials like resins and plastics and because they evaporate quickly and cleanly. How do solvents affect? There are no safe solvents. All solvents, natural or synthetic, are toxic. Contact either with liquid solvents or inhalations of the vapors they emit into the air are hazardous. In general, solvents can irritate and damage the skin, eyes and respiratory tract, cause a narcotic effect on the nervous system and damage internal organs such as the liver and kidneys. These kinds of damage can be acute from a single heavy exposure or chronic from repeated low-dose exposures over months or years. In addition, some solvents are especially hazardous to specific organs or can cause specific diseases such as cancer. Skin contact. All solvents can dissolve the skin's protective barrier of oils, drying and chapping the skin and causing a kind of dermatitis. In addition, some solvents can cause severe burns and irritation of the skin. Natural solvents such as turpentine and limonene are known to cause skin allergies. The eyes and the respiratory tract. All solvent vapors can irritate and damage the sensitive membranes of the eyes, nose and throat. Inhaled deeply solvent vapors also can damage lungs. The airborne concentration at which irritation occurs varies from solvent to solvent. Often workers are unaware of solvents' effects at low concentrations. Their only symptoms may be increased frequency of colds and respiratory infections. Years of such exposure could lead to chronic lung diseases such as chronic bronchitis. At higher concentrations, symptoms are more severe and may include nosebleeds, running eyes, and sore throat. The nervous system. All solvents can affect the brain or central nervous system, causing narcosis. Solvents also may damage the peripheral nervous system, which is the system of nerves leading from the spinal cord to the arms and legs. The symptoms caused by this peripheral nervous system damage are numbness and tingling in the extremities, weakness and paralysis. Some solvents such as N-hexane found in some rubber cements and many spray products can cause a combination of central nervous system and peripheral nervous system effects, resulting in a disease with symptoms similar to multiple sclerosis. Damage to internal organs. There is considerable variation in the kinds and degrees of damage different solvents can do to internal organs. Many solvents can damage the liver and kidney as these organs attempt to detoxify and eliminate the solvents from the body. One solvent, that is carbon tetrachloride, has such a devastating effect on the liver, especially in combination with alcohol ingestion, that many deaths have resulted from its use. Solvent-induced chronic encephalopathy. Chronic solvent-induced encephalopathy is a condition induced by long-term exposure to organic solvents, typically in the workplace, that lead to a wide variety of persisting sensor motor polyneuropathies and neurobehavioral deficits even after solvent exposure has been removed. This syndrome can also be referred to as psychoorganic syndrome or chronic painter's syndrome or occupational solvent encephalopathy or solvent intoxication or toxic solvent syndrome or neuroasthenic syndrome. These multiple names of solvent-induced syndrome combined with inconsistency in research methods makes referencing this disease difficult and its catalogue of symptoms vague. Now its causes. Organic solvents that cause solvent-induced chronic encephalopathy are characterized as volatile, blood-soluble, lipophilic compounds that are typically liquids at normal temperature. These can be compounds or mixtures used to extract, dissolve or suspend non-water-soluble materials such as fats, oils, lipids, cellulose, derivatives, waxes, plastics and polymers. Exposure to solvents can occur by inhalation, ingestion or direct absorption through the skin. Of the three, inhalation is the most common form of exposure, with the solvent able to rapidly pass through the lung membranes and then into fatty tissue or cell membranes. Two characteristic symptoms of CSE are deterioration of memory and attention impairments. Now its diagnosis. Due to its non-specific nature, diagnosing CSE requires a multidisciplinary solvent team typically consisting of a neurologist, occupational physician, occupational hygienist, neuropsychologist and sometimes a psychiatrist or toxicologist. Now its treatment. Like diagnosis, treating CSE is difficult due to how vaguely defined it is, as well as lacking of data on the mechanism of CSE effects on neural tissue. There is no existing treatment that is effective at completely recovering any neurological or physical function lost due to CSE. This is believed to be because of the limited regeneration capabilities in the central nervous system. Furthermore, existing symptoms of CSE can potentially worsen with age. Some symptoms of CSE such as depression and sleep issues can be treated separately and the therapy is available to help patients adjust to any disabilities. Current treatment for CSE involves treating or accompanying psychopathology symptoms and preventing further deterioration. Solvent abuse. Solvent abuse is usually a habit of younger adolescents whereby they inhale the fumes and vapors from solvents such as glue and aerosol cans. It's less popular now with more stringent sales regulations and easier access to other drugs. If anesthesia is excluded, acute poisoning with volatile substances usually follows the deliberate inhalation of vapor in order to become intoxicated. This phenomenon is known as glue sniffing. Inhalant abuse. Solvent abuse or volatile substance abuse, that is VSA. Those who accidentally or deliberately ingest or more rarely inject solvents or solvent-containing products and the victims of the industrial and domestic accidents may also be poisoned by such compounds. vapor phase poisoning with relatively toxic solvents. For example, acetonitrile and methanol may also be encountered, often in an occupational setting, although such compounds are not normally abused. Amyl and butyl nitrites, however, are often inhaled deliberately in order to experience their vasodilator properties. The hazards associated with the abuse of the latter compounds have been reviewed. Volatile substance abuse has clearly much in common with other forms of substance abuse on the one hand and with ethanol use on the other. Solvents or other abusable volatile compounds can produce dose-related central nervous system effects similar to those of other sedatives. Small doses can lead to euphoria and other behavioral disturbances and may also induce more profound effects such as delusions and hallucinations. Now the chlorinated hydrocarbons. A very large and diverse group of organic molecules are chlorinated hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are molecules composed entirely of hydrogen and carbon atoms, often derived from carbon-based fossil fuels like petroleum, oils, and coal. Chlorinated hydrocarbons are specific hydrocarbon molecules that also have atoms of the element chlorine chemically bonded to them. The number of chlorine atoms bonded to a specific chlorinated hydrocarbon determines in part the properties of the molecule. The number of carbon atoms and how they are arranged in 3 dimensions also determines the chemical and physical properties of chlorinated hydrocarbons. Because there is such an immense number of possible forms of chlorinated hydrocarbons, this class of useful compounds has a wide set of applications that are of great economic and practical importance. For example, chlorinated hydrocarbons produced from the refinement of crude oil comprise such as synthetic rubbers used in automobile tires and tennis shoes. They also create plastics used in packaging and products like fluid pipes, furniture, home siding, credit cards, fences and toys. Chlorinated hydrocarbons can also be used as anesthetics, industrial solvents and as precursors in the production of non-stick coatings like Teflon. Chlorinated hydrocarbons are some of the most potent and environmentally persistent insecticides, and when combined with the element fluorine, they function as refrigerants called chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs. Because of their wide array of uses, chlorinated hydrocarbons are among the most important industrial organic compounds. Since they are derived from distillates of petroleum fossil fuels, however, the depletion of global oil and coal reservoirs looms as a concern for the future. Chlorinated hydrocarbons has many industrial applications, including the manufacture of non-stick cookware, industrial solvents and pesticides. Now the fuels and fuel additives. A fuel is a substance that may be burned in air or any other oxygen-containing substance. That is, that they so quickly reacts with oxygen that heat and light is emitted in the form of a sustained flame. Although the chemical reactions of wood in air, animal fat in air, coal in air, natural gas in air, hydrogen in oxygen, silicon in oxygen, sodium in chlorine fuels, zirconium powder in carbon dioxide, nitrocellulose in any medium, etc. are all of the same chemical type. That self-propagating highly exothermic redox reactions, that is combustion process. Usually fuels and combustion only refer to easily flammable substances in air. The air is the oxidizer needed by a fuel to burn, and it is needed in larger quantities than fuels. So, a first glance on it seems appropriate. Now, uses of fuel. Fuels are mostly used as convenient energy stores because of their high specific energy release when burnt with omnipresent ambient air or other specific oxidizer. The same fuel substance may be also used as feedstock in chemical synthesis. For example, polymers from petroleum, lubricants, paints who has never used as coal chunk to draw and so on. But these uses are minority. Primary fuels, that's natural fuels, may be difficult to find, and secondary fuels, that's artificial fuels, may be difficult to manufacture. But once at hand, fuels are very easy to store, transport and use with the only nuisance of safety, that's uncontrolled combustion, and pollution, that's toxic emissions during storage. Energy is a basic need to humans. Besides metabolic energy needed by any living being and supplied by the catalytic reaction of food and oxygen. Descendants of Homo habilis need energy to change nature to better suit their needs, to heat their home, to cook their meals, to bring potable water. For example, from low river courses up to their dwellings, and waste waters out to remove the ground for aeration, to mill the grain, to turn the pottermilly, to throw weapons for industry, for transportation of goods and people for telecommunications. Fuels and energy in general are used for heat generation, for work generation or for chemical transformations. A common problem to all human needs except air in most cases is that energy is not available at the location and time we desired, and sources must be found for energy, water, food and minerals. Transportation to a better place must be arranged as well as storage and end-use details. Storage is sometimes the most cumbersome stage. For example, for food, all food is perishable, particularly meat and fish, and for electrical energy. Now, problems with fuels. Fuels are dangerous because they accumulate a lot of chemical energy that may be accidentally released, causing deadly thermal and chemical effects. Fuels are pollutant when burnt, and even before most liquid fuels are cancerous. They are presently the major contribution to environmental pollution, both locally and at global scale. Fuels are scarce, that fossil sources are being depleted and the sources are unevenly spread. Most petroleum reserves are in the Middle East, causing economic and political instabilities. Fuels are difficult to handle. Coal is very dirty. Crude oil is too viscous. Natural gas has very low density, to say the less. But as just discussed, fuels are so convenient energy storage systems that their associated problems are but to be solved. Danger in fuel handling can be controlled and reduced to a relatively very low risk in comparison with other accepted risks as in transportation or sports. Now coming to the fuel additives. Most fuels such as gasoline, kerosene, gas oil and fuel oil have drawbacks which do not allow their long-term storage, make difficult transportation and even use. Fuel additives are organic substances soluble in fuels, antifoams, anti-icing additives, anti-knock additives, antioxidants, antistatic additives, anti-value seat recession additives, biocides, cetane improvers, combustion chamber deposit modifiers, corrosion inhibitors, demulsifiers, deposit control additives, detergents, diesel fuel stabilizers, drug-reducing agents, dyes and markers, leak detector additives, lubricity improvers, metal deactivators, and wax anti-settling additives. Additives to fuel oil also are described: demulsifiers, sludge dispersants, combustion improvers, and additives for prevention oil, ash, and cold and corrosion in boilers. Action of fuel additives, their application, risks, and benefits are analyzed. Most fuels such as gasoline, kerosene, gas oil, and fuel oil have drawbacks which do not allow their long-term storage, make difficult transportation, and even use. Now, the action of fuel additives and their application. Use of gasoline fuel additives largely reflects developments in engines design and refinery operations, as well as the problems occurring during storage and transportation of gasoline. Use of kerosene additives reflects strict requirements to maintain properties of jet fuel. Use of diesel fuel additives reflects the impact of growing diesel fuel demand and the changing technology of diesel engines. Sometimes additives are divided according to the name of fuel: gasoline, jet fuel, diesel fuel, and fuel oil additives. Before an additive can be approved for use in aviation fuel, it must undergo extensive testing to show both that it is effective and that it does not harm to any other fuel properties. To guard against harmful additive interactions, an additive must be tested at 4 times its maximum dosage in the presence of other additives before it's approved. So this brings us to the end of the lecture. Hope you have enjoyed and understood. Thank you and goodbye.